It will apply not only to residential school survivors and their families, but to all Indigenous people in Canada, and it will be totally free.
Tonight, Ottawa fulfills another of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls for action.
There's such important values for all people to live by, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to take these values because they are universal values.
The sacred laws of the Anishinaabe come to life in a new video. And spiritual leader Jules Lavallee passes on over the weekend. He's remembered as a man of humility and wisdom. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Today, Ottawa announced it will implement call to action number 17 from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It asks all levels of government to enable residential school survivors and their families to reclaim Indigenous names that were stripped from them during the residential school system. Immigration Minister Marco Mendicino said the new initiative is effective immediately and is a way of showing their commitment to reconciliation.
Indigenous individuals can now apply to reclaim their names as written on passports and other identity documents. While Call to Action 17 specifically referenced passports, as the Minister, we have gone further and are including replacement travel documents, including citizenship certificates and permanent resident cards. As well, it will apply not only to residential school survivors and their families, but to all Indigenous people in Canada, and it will be totally free.
While the federal Liberals say they're committed to reconciliation, they're back in court this week trying to quash two rulings by a federal human rights tribunal related to First Nations kids in care. Ottawa reporter Brett Forster is following the appeal and joins us now to break it all down. Brett, take us through the background, remind us of the background of this. Why is this back in court?
Yeah, so in 2007, this case began with a human rights complaint. And in 2016, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal issued its landmark ruling that the Canadian government was in fact racially discriminating against First Nations children on reserves and in the Yukon by knowingly underfunding the child welfare system and refusing to implement Jordan's principle. Now in 2019, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal followed up on this order, stating that this discriminatory conduct was quote unquote willful and reckless, and it awarded compensation to the victims based on the pain, suffering, and loss of dignity that resulted from the discrimination. And then in 2020, it ruled again, broadening the scope of Jordan's principle to include certain non-status First Nations kids who live off the reserve if they meet certain eligibility criteria. And it's these latter two orders which are currently under appeal.
What exactly is Canada arguing here?
Right, so Robert Frater, counsel for the Canadian government, launched an offensive this morning against the compensation order first. He said this order was, quote, irrational and seriously flawed. He said the decision to compensate all these people was so deeply problematic it needs to be quashed outright or sent back to a different tribunal for redetermination. Essentially, his argument is that the tribunal has lost sight of the complaint and began making open-ended remedial orders, which it has no legal authority to do under the Canadian Human Rights Act, which is a federal statute that governs what the tribunal can and can't rule upon.
What are other organizations saying, as Canada comes out saying all of this?
Yeah, they're returning fire. So first off was the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society of Canada. Its legal counsel, Sarah Clark, gave about an hour and a half worth of testimony today. She characterized Frater's argument as technical, legalistic, and ultimately irrelevant. She said he was trying to gloss over the harm and pain and suffering and even death that resulted from Canada's discriminatory conduct. She called their legal strategy, quote unquote, a shameful attempt at trying to save money. She said the tribunal's rulings were quite logical and coherent based on the facts of the case, and she urged the court not to interfere lightly with those findings.
Well, and, the House of Commons had passed a motion recently saying that Ottawa should drop these appeals. That's obviously not happening. What's the political fallout of all of this?
Well, here in Ottawa, this is expected to be an election year, and these appeals are occurring in a heightened political climate following the discovery of what are believed to be children's remains in Kamloops, BC. So you can expect the NDP to keep hammering away at the Liberals because of their decision to continue with this appeal. It was passed unanimously with support of the Liberal backbench, but not Trudeau and the cabinet, as well as some of their key lieutenants. They were registered as abstentions. So even though it passed unanimously, those are some pretty key, abstentions, and you can expect them to keep taking flack for that.
Well, we will be following your story as you follow all of this unfolding. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Cultural ceremonies have begun to honor the 215 children that were found buried in the unmarked and undocumented graves on the former Kamloops Indian residential school property. Our Tina House was there. She has this story.
As a traditional honors song was performed here on the shoreline of the Thompson River, tobacco was put in the water as part of a ceremony to bring home the spirits of the many children who were forced onto cattle trucks from across BC and brought to the Kamloops Indian Residential School. For many family members and survivors, today was very emotional. The Adams Lake Indian Band organized this event to finally bring home the spirits of their children who attended the residential school. Many survived, but left a part of themselves trapped inside this building after enduring horrific abuses, and others never made it home.
215 found in the graves. We're going to honor them with some prayers, with some songs, with some unity.
Countless stories have emerged of former students who would run away through this field to get away from the school and end up here at the Red Bridge, but they didn't know which way was home. They would eventually be caught and brought back to the school and severely punished. A walk was organized to bring those spirits home, and it began on the Red Bridge with close to 400 descendants, survivors, supporters, and leaders. We met Leonard Ignace along the walk.
My three sisters went to the residential school here, and they all passed away because of the abuse they suffered in there. It wasn't a good story.
The walkers then gathered in the powwow arbor before going the rest of the way. The discovery of the 215 graves of children as young as 3 years old was heavy on everyone's minds, knowing that just steps away, they laid there in unmarked graves until now, confirming what survivors have been saying for years.
Some carried this for 80 years, 70, 60, 50, 40 years. They carried these memories. They carried these stories. So these children today, they've shown themselves to the world, and they've shown themselves for a very specific purpose. It's to heal.
Cookbee Roseanne Casimir, chief of the Kamloops Tissaquepum, says her community will continue to offer full support to all the nations that want to conduct ceremonies for the children found so far. And with that, the Walking the Spirits Home walk began with elders in wagons pulled by teams of horses, kids being pushed in strollers, and families and supporters walking to honor the lost children. We caught up with Leonard Ignace again as the walkers were leaving the school grounds. What are your thoughts when you see that building?
Trauma, abuse, physical, mental, sexual. And I just want to flaming arrow. It's just an eyesore for all the victims of what happened. Every time they drive by, I imagine they're just bringing back memories of what happened to them.
The walk lasted 3 days and ended 65 kilometers away on the Adams Lake Indian Band traditional territory, with drummers lined up welcoming the spirits of the children home, finally. Tina House, APTN National News, to Kamloops.
We want to hear what you think about the increased interest in Canada and abroad of the found graves at the former residential school sites. Here's how you can continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Over the weekend, RCMP Constable Shelby Patton was killed on duty near Wolseley, Saskatchewan. He was a member of the Indian Head RCMP detachment responding to a stolen vehicle complaint near Odessa. 2 Manitobans made a court appearance this morning for charges related to his death. Priscilla Wolf explains.
According to RCMP, Constable Patton was dispatched to a stolen vehicle complaint at about 7 a.m. Saturday morning. He was attempting a traffic stop when he was struck and killed. The stolen vehicle was found stuck in the mud nearby. The suspects were found near the vehicle and arrested. This morning at a Regina court, 41-year-old Alphonse Stanley Travers from Winnipeg has been charged with manslaughter, failure to stop after an accident, theft of a motor vehicle, possession of stolen property over $5,000, and breach of undertaking, leaving the province of Manitoba. 42-year-old Marlene Velma Louise Pagey, also from Manitoba, is charged with manslaughter, failure to stop after an accident resulting in death, theft of a motor vehicle, possession of stolen property over $5,000, and possession of a controlled substance and breach of undertaking. The Crown opposed the release of the two. They will remain in custody until their next court date. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
We need to take a quick break, but when we come back, it's been a year since Rodney Levi was killed by New Brunswick RCMP. We're going to check in with his family as they mark that tragic anniversary. Stay with us. It's been 1 year since the fatal police shooting of Rodney Levi at a house barbecue in Sunnybrook, New Brunswick. Levi's family held a day of events to honor Levi and renewed their calls for justice. Angel Moore reports.
Community members gathered on the weekend to honor the memory of Rodney Levi.
We're gathering over at the school gym, and we're gonna just be there in solidarity and just show that, we're not gonna just sit down and let this blow over. They took a real life, they took a real human.
Becky Levi remembers the day her uncle, 48-year-old Rodney Levi of Metapanogiag First Nation, was killed by RCMP.
The fight's not over. We're gonna see this through. When
RCMP were called to a disturbance at a home and say Rodney approached the officer with a knife and perceived Rodney as a threat. Chief Bill Ward was shocked.
I couldn't believe it. The call that I got was kind of, it was a hard call to take. He wasn't a violent person. He was a gentle guy. He was too friendly, and it was shocking and devastating.
The investigation found the shooting was suicide by police and no charges were laid against the officer. The Levi family disagrees.
I just don't want to see it happen to another family. And I just want there to be change.
The Levi family hopes a coroner's inquest on October 4th will provide answers. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Chibuktuk, also known as Halifax.
Kashechewan First Nation is calling on the federal government for support as it deals with a COVID outbreak that's affected its youth. 114 of Kashechewan's 1,800 members have tested positive for COVID this past week. A release from Chief and Council says 77 of those cases are people under age 17. The community is calling it a humanitarian crisis and say they need federal support. Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller announced they have deployed Canadian Rangers to bring in isolation tents. But Chief Leo Friday says crowded housing and infrastructure seems to have made the outbreak much worse.
It's sad what's going on. If we did have enough houses to house people, this wouldn't happen. And the programs that we have wasn't cut, I think we would be in a better position.
Turning now to COVID-19 in the territories, there's no active cases in the Northwest Territories, while Nunavut is reporting 9. Meanwhile, teen vaccination clinics start on Wednesday in Iqaluit. As for the Yukon, it's declaring a COVID outbreak. The territory is reporting 10 new cases from the weekend. 9 of the people are unvaccinated. There's currently 21 active cases there. The outbreak is linked to grad events and people socializing at bars and house parties. One case is confirmed as a high school student in Whitehorse. The Yukon's acting chief medical officer of health, Dr. Catherine Elliott, says she's worried about the surge in cases.
The outbreak at this point, and our hope is not to have any more severe cases or any more hospitalizations. The way that we do that is we stop the spread.
Time for another break, but when we come back, it's Pride Month and an LGBTQ2S council has been formed in Treaty 3 territory. We'll tell you all about that. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Our viewer Dana Kelly from Sandy Bay First Nation captured this great shot of a double rainbow. The real question is, what does it mean? I'm told that's some pop culture reference that some of you cool kids might get. You can keep those great photos coming by sending your photo to share@aptn.ca, and it might be our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at tomorrow's weather forecast. Off to the east coast, we got sunshine and 14 for St. John's. Halifax, cloud, 18 degrees expected. Sunshine and 17 for La Grande River. Kuujjuaq, setting 8 degrees. Chibougamau, sunshine, 18. Montreal, cloud and 22. Ottawa, 24 with some showers expected. Same with Peterborough, 20 in North Bay and sunny. Lots of sun up in Northern Ontario. 18s for Kapuskasing and Timmins. 24 for Thunder Bay. Sun continues up in Northern Manitoba. 23 for Thompson. 26 for Puckatawagan. 28 and sunny for Winnipeg and Brandon. 30 in Dauphin. 34 and 34 for Saskatoon, 35 for North Battleford. Beautiful down in southern Saskatchewan. 29 for La Ronge and Buffalo Narrows, but a chance of showers there. 28 in Stony Rapids. Northern Alberta, we got lots of cloud. 23 for High Level, 22 for Peace River. 25 and cloudy for Edmonton, 29 in sunshine for Lethbridge. Cloud out on the coast to 19 for Campbell River, 23 for Penticton. Dease Lake, 16 and cloud, 18 and cloud for Prince George. Sunshine though for Dawson City up in the Yukon, 27 degrees. Rock River, 22. 22 for Norman Wells, sunshine there. Wati, 20 and sunny. Sun continues up in the north of the NWT, 26 for Fort McPherson. Paulatuck, 13. 17 and cloud for Baker Lake. New Yacht, cloud and 5. Joe Haven, 4 with cloud. Same with Tallyoak, 7 and cloud for Clyde River. The Anishinaabe Nation in Treaty 3 territory in northwestern Ontario has added an LGBTQS+ council to its governing body. The vote was passed last summer to add the council, and now that a coordinator has been appointed, work can officially begin. The new council joins the existing elders, women's, men's, and youth councils. The council will ensure activities and decisions made by the Grand Council will have input from the community, something the council's new coordinator says was missing before.
I never had that when I was growing up, and so I felt like it was, a really important step for Kenora and the Treaty 3 Nation area to have, and it's a really important step, and it means a lot to me and to the community, and especially in this, to have our voices on a governance level and to be included into that table. It's very meaningful and very powerful.
An Anishinaabe elder and Manitoba filmmaker have teamed up to create a new animated series that brings stories that have been passed down orally for generations to life. With more, here's Daryl Stranger.
7 Sacred Laws is a new animated series that follows a young boy on an Indigenous rite of passage, a vision quest. During his spiritual journey, he meets 7 sacred animals that teach him how we as people should live our lives on Mother Earth.
And we're the people that know about the land. One of the things that I know, no matter what Indigenous community that I go to, you always feel the expression of the love that they have for the land. And that's where we derive the love that we have in our heart, is from the land. It's instinctive in us as Indigenous people.
Anishinaabe elder Dave Kershane wrote the series after years of sharing these stories. The 7 sacred laws are ancestral values that inspire our conduct as human beings and brings us back to our relationship with the earth.
I've always believed that we are the true leaders of our homeland. It's not a political leadership I'm talking about. It's a spiritual, moral, leadership of, how to be kind and how to have a sacred relationship with the land.
Erica Daniels is a filmmaker from Peguas First Nation who has worked with Elder Kershane in the past. She directed this series and said joining the project was an easy decision.
When they told me about the project that they were doing, I was just so excited, because this is an opportunity for us to share the values, the beautiful values that we live by, those natural laws, but they're very much universal laws for all people. So, the goal is to really share these with a wider audience, especially young people.
Daniels added the series is important for everyone to learn, not just Indigenous people.
My main goal for this series is that it be shared in schools across the country for all ages, not only, children, but younger youth, like youth and young adults as well, because there's such important values for all people to live by, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to take these values because they are universal values. And it also is an opportunity to educate people on who Indigenous people truly are and our values that we live by and the beauty of our cultures.
The vignette series is available online in English, French, and Anishinaabe. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We'll definitely be finding that online. Well, APTN has lost a family member. Métis elder and educator Jules Lavallee started his journey to the spirit world last week. He was 79 years old. Jules Yellow Butterfly Man was born in Saint Laurent, Manitoba. He was raised well connected to his Métis roots, an avid fisher, trapper, and hunter. He shared teachings through ceremony and sharing circles and was the first elder in residence here at APTN. Along with his family, he ran the Red Willow Lodge and worked with Red River College and the University of Manitoba, sharing wisdom and traditions with many students over the years. He leaves behind 8 children, 23 grandchildren, and 14 great-grandchildren.
Ceremony at sunrise.
Much love sent to his family from APTN here. Well, that is your news for this Monday. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.